that will please or displease the couple of municipalities that have already indicated their willingness to get involved. I guess that would be, we'll wait and see how that unfolds.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes.
Once again, Councillor Bryce, excellent, excellent. But I see no inconsistency with what you've said and how this would go forward. We would certainly ask, with the terms of reference as described by Councillor Derman, how is the study being done? Who's going to perform it? What are the categories of information? And if we're not and only join the study, if we are satisfied, it answers Sanic's concerns and questions. And if they are not able to give us that information, we have the opportunity not to join. Because why would we join if we're not going to get the information we're looking for? So I see no inconsistency with what you've said, and the collective minds of this council, I'm sure, can guide this letter in that direction. But the fact that you've raised it so elegantly, it was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Councillor Brown from the German on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, I just want to clarify. So is the last paragraph still part of the amendment? Okay.
Amended the first statement.
Okay. So the last paragraph is, prior to drafting the letter, residents will be invited to a public meeting to provide feedback to Mayor and Council as to what should be included in our letter. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask staff how that would happen. Would it be a committee of the whole, or would we have a draft? Mr. Laidlaw, please.
The reality is that will be however council directs that to be. If you want to have a special meeting on that, that's fine. If you want to include it in one of your council meetings as the first item for public input, we can do that as well. That would be good to see the direction of council on that.
So council, we need to decide how we're going to do that. Our greater community needs to see what the draft looks like, and then they need to have the opportunity. Because we've already kind of crafted something here, but that's us, that's not them. And we got to talk to our people if that paragraph is still in. So we need to come up with how that's going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the amendment which I put forward, and the important part of it is the willingness to participate in principle and subject to an understanding of the nature of the study and the terms of reference. And then, though, as Councillor Brown just asked, the last part of the motion remains the same. I certainly would be asking for certain things to be in that letter, such as whether or not the essential object of the study is to look at improved government in the region broadly, or whether it's directed specifically at amalgamation. That's an important point. Obviously, who will conduct it and how will they be selected is pretty key. What will be studied and how will it be studied in terms of, again, that broadness and so forth. How will the public be involved? How and when can we be sure that it is unbiased? What sort of control will the province take, if any, over the process? These are all important questions, and we can certainly ask the Minister to clarify those, and I think we have a duty to do so, in actual fact. Thank you.
Councillor Haynes on the amendment.
This is in follow-up to Councillor Bryce. She's raised a point, and I need some guidance here, because as I read, be it resolved that Sanet will write a letter, etc., the letter will be developed by Mayor and Council with the assistance of staff. I've got it. But then prior to drafting the letter, does it mean that letter? So I was thinking that our work would be to give some terms of reference and some templates to get the discussion going, then public input would come and retool that, change it, modify it, add to it, so that it would be prior to drafting the final letter, because I don't know how we're going to get the process moving if there's nothing there. So can I get some guidance on that? Final letter? Yeah,
Please
final
go ahead.
letter.
See, Mr. Mayor, I'll give you the interpretation that you can tell me if I've got it correct. We're talking about the second one first. So prior to drafting the letter, you would invite the public to a meeting. You would take that input. After that meeting, you would work with drafting the letter, which would be forwarded. So these are really in reverse order here, as I'm reading it. So the first thing would be public meeting, and then the letter, which would be drafted by mayor and council. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So call the question on the amendment then. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that's carried unanimously. Now we're back to the main motion. Is there any more discussion on the main motion?
As amended.
As amended, thank you. Oh, I really want to speak. Councilor Platt, go ahead.
I'm going to pass for a moment.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I was trying to be respectful to you, sir. Sir, I feel like a child again. I don't mean it disrespectfully, it's just my nature.
It's okay, and it's Mr. Sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I would wonder if the council would be amenable to that final letter. So I'm just trying to understand. So we're going to have a meeting, we're going to draft a letter, and then the public has to deal, they don't get a chance to look at that letter again. Is that correct with the way it currently is? That's a question to staff.
Well, I'd like to get some clarification on that because typically when we are communicating with other levels of government, we invoke the community charter and we go on camera with that as intergovernmental relations. So I'd like to know, would we do that and then we would do rise and report on it and get it to the public, or how that would happen?
So, Mr. Mayor, as I understand the motion that's amended currently, you would be inviting public to a meeting, at which time you would get input, and then subsequent to that meeting, you would move towards the first part of it, is drafting a letter to the minister based on what you heard at that meeting and the other issues identified by council this evening.
So then I think we need to understand better about what is the legality of what the mayor's asked us. Once that letter is written, after the input from the public, are we going to share that letter with the public again, or is that going to be sent in a private document?
Just for clarification, my view on that would be, because you would be having that discussion publicly, that letter will be available to the public.
Thank you. So then I would just like to amend, adding a third paragraph. Prior to the letter being sent to the minister, this shall appear as an agenda item for public input.
I think we would just... Yeah.
I want to make sure the public has a chance to speak. Well, it hasn't been seconded, so if no one's going to talk to it, I won't talk to it. Okay. I want the general public to be able to see what we're writing to the province. Under the current mechanism, it's possible that we take the feedback, we write the letter, and then you'll learn about it when the province releases it. I think the general public needs to have the opportunity to see that letter.
Discussion? Councilor Durham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have every right to, as I have done as an individual councillor, to write a public letter to the province. That is, the day we send it, it's available to the public, to the press, to anybody who wants to look at it. That is, if we conduct a meeting, an open business meeting, and we come with, we have information in it that the public has shared with us, and there's nothing that really qualifies under the charter to be in camera that I could understand. So as soon as we crafted that letter, it becomes a public document.
The point being, though, Councillor Dermott, that it would come back to a council meeting where the public could say, yes, that's the letter we asked you to write, or we don't agree with this letter, etc.
Then if I could suggest, Councillor Plant, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please, Councilor Durham.
That if that's the case, then you include the suggested amendment from Councillor Haynes prior to drafting the final letter. And you might have a draft letter available for the public to comment on, because otherwise we're going to take forever doing this. We're going to have a public meeting, we're going to get together, we're going to write the letter, we're going to have another public meeting for council to respond to the letter. I'll be able to see the minister's response from my restroom, I think. So, maybe if we just created a draft letter and prior to drafting the final version of the letter, we bring it to the committee or whatever for comment.
So having heard that, I'd like to revoke my motion. However, I'd like to make an additional one, that meeting be held no later than 21 days from tonight.
Yes.
So I'd look for a seconder to say that.
Second.
Just puts it into play that we're not going to be holding the process too long, but it yet gives 2 to 3 weeks notice for the general public to make arrangements to come to a meeting. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Councillor Bryce, please.
Can I have some clarification? When we're talking about to a public meeting, I consider this to be a public meeting. I don't think you have to have a meeting outside of this chamber. Quite frankly, I think an agenda item is a public meeting. So I think we can set ourselves that, you know, at the next meeting of council or whatever, but 21 days, I'm thinking, look, I've got to grab my calendar, where are we, you know, where does that take us, sort of thing, and do we accomplish anything more? I mean, I consider this a public meeting, just for the record.
Councillor Glenn.
To go back on that, I was envisioning this, Councillor Bryce, not occurring at a council meeting. If you feel it can be done at a council meeting and it's not overly full, then I'm absolutely fine with that. I just wanted to set a timeline so that this didn't disappear into the ether.
Seeing no more discussion, I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor?
Not 21, because 22nd of June is more than 21 days away.
Call the question. Hands up. Put your hand down again, Councillor Haynes.
My hand's down.
Okay. All against? Motion's defeated.
Motion on the floor to have it on the 22nd of June.
So that was the amendment that was defeated. Now we're back to the main motion again.
The amendment, sorry. Move the amendment to the 22nd of June. To have the 22nd of June as the date for this.
Maybe this is too prescriptive. Councillor Brown, please.
Mr. Mayor, could we just ask staff, we're picking dates out of the air, we need to know from staff what's available, what date?
So Mr. Mayor, my suggestion would be that you pick a current venue or council meeting you have, and the options would be the 15th to the 22nd. That would be identified and advertised publicly as part of the agenda process. 22nd is not within the 21 days, 15th is, but if you pick either one of those, and if you want a separate meeting, that's available to council as well. But my recommendation at this point, based on what I've heard,